Greetings, beloveds, and welcome to The Art of, a series of podcasts dedicated to exploring what goes into doing creative and spiritual work with excellence. I'm your host, Robyn Leigh Lear, Director of Spirituality and Arts at Scarritt Bennett Center in Nashville, Tennessee, and in this episode, we are opening the doors for you to hear from three amazing poets of the Poets Corner writing community at Scarritt Bennett, but also to give you a peek into the publishing world to help you and inspire you, for all of us who might just need a nudge and insight into how to go from private journal to the published page. So let's get started as we open our time together with this live recorded edition of Poets Corner right here, right now. Greetings, beloveds. My name is Robyn Leigh Lear. I direct spirituality and arts programming here at Scarritt Bennett Center. And if you know nothing about Scarritt Bennett, we exist to create space where individuals and groups engage each other to achieve a more just world. And obviously, the arts is a fantastic way to connect and get to know one another. Tonight, we are particularly engaging in Poets Corner. This is an event that we try to have every single month, so do follow our events calendar for updates on the next Poets Corner. And as we get started, we're going to start with a little bit of an open mic moment for some new folks in our community. Just because you had the energy, my friend Chris. Is it Elric? Let's give him a hand.
Thank you, everyone. Chris Ehrlich. I'm an author. I'm going to read a poem from my book, Parts of a Life, 40 Stories on Youth to Adulthood, which is a book of poetic short stories. It's called Moments, chapters 36. His children are older, almost grown, little no more, closer to adult than child. He hears one call his name, Dad. He hears a question. He hears the past instead. Dad, play with me. Play this game with me. Dad, look at this drawing. Look at this paper from school. Dad, play catch with me. Play chess with me. Dad, Dad. He sees moments past, the parts where he paused. The questions are different now. They still begin with Dad. He only hears a little child being childish. There's nothing to consider. He has his answer. Yes. Say yes, he thinks. Always say yes. Get one more if you do one more for the Nashville crowd. This is called Hendersonville, which is where I'm based. Hendersonville, chapter 34. He leaves his home, walks down the street, in a planned neighborhood new many years ago. He passes lakefront houses, sees the lake between them. The lake is empty. No boat is in sight. He wants to get closer, see more. He's 3 miles northeast of Nashville, Tennessee, in a city with more plans. He turns on a gravel trail leading to the lake. He walks through woods on a dirt trail. Trees meet above, conceal the sky. He walks down a slope, steps out of the woods. He reaches the trail's end. The lake is waiting. He sits on a large, flat rock, the lake's edge. He sees the water still, going nowhere. Sun rays showing the water's shape. A boat far away, cruising. A factory on the other side. Smoke leaving a smokestack. He stays on the rock, watching the picture before him. He's small, seeing only part of the winding water. He rises, climbs a few rocks over, holds on to a tree with one hand, kneels to stretch his other hand into the lake. He makes his hand move beneath the water. Because he can, because he couldn't, a wet ritual to greet the lake, to make the picture real. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I already know we got some Hendersonville love in the house. And that was my future home base for almost 10 years. So my goodness, that felt amazing to hear. Come on down.
Hi, I'm Carrie Friedel, and I am a journal poet. So they're all in my journals right now. I just submitted this to be published, but I have not got word. So this is called Last of the Greats. My last great aunt died. She was the last of 28 greats, aunts and uncles who embodied Appalachian life. All the many I knew, a generation only brushed up against in moments of my life, at visits, family reunions, weddings, funerals, and church revivals. This generation considered silent were not so silent, living through the Depression, World War II, Cold War, civil unrest, floods, blue-collar jobs, making ends meet, in hills and river valleys, farms and small towns. My great aunt lived 97 years, almost a century, in the southern Ohio River Valley. Almost a century of change in a community where it once was. Better to live near town. Cleaning a church she loved, sitting at the doorstep of God as if 10,000 years were just a day. I have one more. I'm going to reveal my age. This says, at 51, a litany of life. At 51 years, grant, O God, the moments to celebrate the living of this life. For I am your creation to be remade this day. I ask, O God, for your abiding and everlasting love to fill my heart. I have lived this day, for I am your creation to be remade today. O God, you are in the midst of my life, in the living spirit of peace and hope for a brighter world tomorrow. For I am your creation to be remade today. Almighty God, as you watch over me, give the better angels of my nature charge over my choices towards kindness, to be strong and known. For I am your creation to be remade today. God, my rock and my redeemer, make new my heart to be open to others, to love others as I am to be also loved myself. For I am your creation to be remade today. God, loving presence, I am reborn this day by the power of your love, which leads my earthly life. For I am your creation to be remade today.
And I'm going to let these wonderful, beautiful human beings take it away. Come on, guys.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be back reading at Poets Corner again. I love this event and the people who've always been involved in it. And tonight, I'm pleased to read newer poems. I'm Dana Malone. I am a member of the Appalachian Writers Workshop, and I feel as though my words come from the very soil where I was born. I have a collection of lyric essays titled Mud, Blood, Fire, Flood. And I never thought I would see the eye of a hurricane over the place where I grew up, and the rest, and a hurricane, washing the road away to my home away. My dad died 2 weeks after this, and I flew, but I couldn't have gotten home on the road I usually go. So, and then recently, Table Rock, which is a place I spent summers at, and a lot of my time with burned. I don't know if you know about the Table Rock fires, but that's a lot of who I am. I'm a poet in Nashville. I'm a teaching artist through the Porch Writers Collective. We have a cohort who goes to Mending Hearts, which is a treatment center and residential facility for women who have addictions, possibly unhoused from prison or from trafficking situations. So it's very meaningful to me to have been involved with that. And with the Porch Writers Collective through their Poetry on Demand program that fueled a podcast called Versify. I have been, somebody talked about sharing your age. I have been on the planet for 60 years and at these open mics in Nashville for 30. So it's been an honor to have been in this community. And I invite any of you to join us at readings or as a listener, or be brave enough to share work of your own. My next collection is called Everyone Begotten, Everything Holy, and April Gloaming is going to publish it. So tonight I wanted to read a few poems, have Klyd Watkins, voiced by Lance Umenhofer from April Gloaming, share his work. His book came out in February. And then Robyn, who was the co-founder and publisher of April Gloaming, had a book that just came out. So I'd like for her to read from that, and then we'll do a Q&A. I want Lance to tell you a little bit more about the press. And I will say that one of their taglines is amplifying the voices of the unbridled holler. And I think my body is an unbridled holler. The soil on which I grew was. I do think that Appalachia is rich in culture, diversity, and that will always get amplified. What gets perpetuated are very stereotypical and ill-informed things about people who came from where I came from. So I will read first the opening poem of that collection, Credo, long form. With the holy practice of chisel and shape, we are bold to say we believe in cocktail napkin drafts, leftover twine, bottle cap divinations, pop-up shops, and arts crawl over limestone cliffs eroded by the erasures of poems. We persist in craft despite hearing loss and macular degeneration, or the cruelty of redaction and ban. We believe artists in all media are called to illuminate, that language shifts as much as resists. To protect us from ransack, we believe the sanest in a burning world listen to poets more than politicians. We are baptized in the holiness of finger-painted poster boards and the media of crayons. We are called to dig into shape notes, villanelle, epistolary, and haiku with golden shovels. Standing on our uneven feet, we remain broken as forms and genres yet to be conceived. In all demolished ephemera and everlasting works of art, we believe. So if the apostles have their creed, the artists do too. I was just thinking, thank you, as a couple of things. I'm going to read a short poem from my previous collection called Mother Grave Ghost. And thank you to all of you who've listened to these words before. I'm going to read a short one from there, but kind of also ties in with my idea of motherhood being the land. And so this Appalachian lyric essay I was talking to you about, I don't even know if I remember it, but I think the first paragraph reads, I go home to the hills of the Blue Ridge Mountains and dig my hands into the earth. Show up to my high school reunion night after, my hands kindly rough, nails with stubborn dirt under them. all this time to come home to fits and victories, tatters and autumns before my mama's passing. And as I stand at the high school, which today is surrounded by cow pasture, I swear on the mud below my feet, I hardly crack the Bible anymore. And this poem is from Mother Grave Ghost. It's called Ghost Hour, a month after my mother's death. Almost everything can be forgiven. At least that's what I hoped for. And shatterproof glass from all the things that could harm me. Almost everything rests on her grave, or the touch of my hand on her shoulder, what I did not know to be the last, or her palm between my shoulder blades, all those childhood nights I did not think I could dream that something besides monsters could be almost everything. So the book talks about sort of that wobble of initial loss. So, and I promised that this next collection was going to have a lot of humor, and it will. I'm going to read before I bring Klyd in the form of Lance up to read. I have a couple more, but this one I'll read now and the other one later. This, I don't know why, but April Gloaming awarded me a prize during the pandemic for this collection called the Tempest Edition. They solicited work from poets, fiction writers, and nonfiction writers to talk about the impact of the tornadoes and the pandemic on Nashvillians. And I wrote a story about my friend Johanna's sister, who's also like a sister to me, Stephanie Kisselberg, who was greatly impacted in those ways. And I tried my best to embody her experiences. And this is a abbreviated version of that poem. It's called Reclamations, the Book of Stephanie. I was just fine as apocryphal text, in the routine of old and a sense of what's next. Now I find myself unexpectedly starting anew. Violent spin of EF3, twist of bonus room to nightmare, bedroom addition collapsed on my son. Despite the riddle of bricks, his frame and muscles okay. Psychotherapy not indicated, yet these are days of uproot. March 2020 and my East Nashville neighborhood tarped blue. I navigate live wires and upright oaks. Psychological shocks, not so much. And what of the blind dog that I was mindful of him? Poor old man. I threw him in the basement to save his life. Small miracle, he didn't have to experience such sudden darkness. After 160-mile-an-hour winds, we hope for a calmer 2021, filled with scribbles on felt finished pages, hours in double chases, visitors, a little whimsy, a lot of pass a hallelujah to the neighbors, their hustle and kindness, grills and Sammys, the pellets of pure life. The tongue and groove perpetual I sing will understand it better by and by. Struggle for the words to say, I lost my livelihood too. Cry, question marks, a few hours every day, crawl rejoicing to everything that's not necessarily nice. Hear me, city, with your 6 o'clock songs, 8 o'clock howls, closed businesses, shuttered security, bombs, and aftershocks. We'll take our empty holes, nails sticking out and bent, turn destruction into Americana orchestra, B, tambourine and fringe, ukulele, mandolin, the basement east, Acme, and Five Spot, Fanny's House of Music, Delgado guitars, name everything proper. From what remains and is yet to come, let us pause before we sand and plane. Before polishing only the sides we deem worthy, let us grant grace to withstand discard and solitary doubt. Call our wreckage collective, like worn wood collected and as is. Call us all of character. And so, one recovery leads to another need for recovery. Let's see, I am missing. I tell you what, I'm going to let you come up. I've got, I think I know this by heart. We'll see if I know this by heart. This is going to be in the collection. You know, when you talk about amplifying the voices of the unbridled holler, or this idea that you elevate the voices of the New South, for me and this new collection, it just means that I get to pose the questions and say the things I never, would have been invited to say growing up in the evangelical church. So, Curious Dana, as a little girl, thought when she heard the stories from the Hebrew Bible, and all the stories about Moses, that his origin story has to do with his older sister saving his life. So this is a reading from the book of Miriam. And if I mess it up, I'll find it. A reading from the book of Miriam. We bury burning bushes. Uganda looks like an underbelly, not the garden. Eve, in a man's story, looks like the one to blame, while of her own creates her own. Dixie crystals look like something frontmen lick off the bodies of backup singers instead of what flies off the shelves when children bake Thanksgiving pies for the women who taught them to conjure recipes. Hannah's prayer looks like a dress rehearsal for David instead of the first psalm sung with the believability of a bleeding throat. Mary Magdalene looks like a backstage whore, not the first evangelist. Miriam, with her bulrush and invention, was stardom and not 20 feet from it. Know this, nothing set in stone would have happened if not for the voice of Moses' older sister singing under a bushel. No, under a bushel. No. That was kind of a conflation of watching 20 feet from stardom. So love Mary Clayton and all those backup singers. And they weren't totally respected by the front men that they backed, including Mick Jagger. So I will hush and let Lance come and read some of Klyd Watkins' work and talk a little bit about the press. Thanks, Lance.
Wow, thank you, Dana. That was awesome. That last poem. I don't have anything memorized, not because it's not my poetry, but also because I didn't do that. So I am the editor-in-chief of April Gloaming. We are fortunate enough to be publishing a lot of local Nashville talent, especially in the near future. So Dana is among one of the forthcoming titles. And I have the pleasure of reading from Klyd Watkins' poetry collection, The Wolf Can Smell, This Is My Acre. A little bit about us. We are a nonprofit press that focuses on publishing Southern literature from a diverse range of voices, ensuring that inclusivity and socially progressive ideals are held at the forefront of both what we publish and who we publish. A little bit of a different shtick with us is we don't define Southern literature quite by the region necessarily, but more by the aesthetic of Southern literature. So we end up publishing people from all over the world through April Gloaming. But what we really look for are qualities in the writing itself. And we look for a strong connection to land, some grit or haunt or tooth. And that's sort of a fancy way of saying that, we're looking for those voices of the unbridled holler. So obviously that leaves a lot of room open for questions for later, which I'm sure you will have. So let me kind of shift over to Klyd. We published Klyd because of those reasons. Now, Klyd, especially with his writing on land and place, totally sort of embodies that unbridled holler that we look for. Now, when you read Klyd's work, you'll see that literally everything in the poem is alive. So you've got hawks talking, you've got trees talking at you, you've got the barn, you've got the sun, and you've got the stars. Everything has a voice. Everything is breathing and talking and interacting with each other. It's sort of an embedding into nature, a humanizing personification that brings all within and together as though we are not separate from what is around us, but of it, among it, it itself. So I do believe that on one of the blurbs for this lovely book, I'm really sort of grabbed at the heart of Klyd's work. And so I want to read that before I get into his poems. This is from Stephen Thomas. And he says that Klyd Watkins' poems start off with the speed of whatever moment they are meant to capture. They rush here, pause there, and wandering as the mind wanders, find their way back, surprised and surprising to favorite places. They are as hopeful as they are sad, as humble as they are pleased with themselves. Klyd puts all his concerns and his obsessions together with a sweetness and a light touch that are his own. His poems move along, keeping all the senses, as well as the heart and mind, continuously engaged. He writes poems that celebrate the spirit of one place so well that they show us how to celebrate any and every place. So this collection ended up being 3 of Klyd's chapbooks put together and put into sections from the chapbook. So I'm going to read one from each section just to kind of give you guys an idea of both Klyd's work and of this specific collection itself. So the first one I want to read is from the section titled Hammock Hoy Dia. And I believe most of these were composed in a hammock that I have been to at his property. He lives right along the Harpeth River in this absolute breathtaking scenery. And it's just, when you go there, I saw the hammock and I got these poems. But this one's called 2 Hammocks, One with Snow. In the treetops I've strung a hammock. I lie there now. I strung that hammock from inside my head while lying in my actual hammock in contemplation. Snow lies in that physical hammock. Right now, I see the white out my window, lying where I would be if I weren't in the warm, here, pen in hand, in tiny cursive contemplation. Look back through the window now, to my imagined hammock overhead in the canopy out there, in my treetop hammock. Look, we be there now. The blue sky blazes because the light from spots of sun upon the snow reflects back up into the sunshine it fell down through. And that makes a crazy frame for this sky's ridiculous blue. It feels very good having that blue. packed all firm within us, the blue that means to make us rich directly. The next section is called Spirit Trough, and I'm going to read the title poem of the section, titled Spirit Trough. The rock bed of the river is a flowing thing itself crumpled, insinuating onward. Above it the water flows, and above the water air presses the hills and bluffs that wall. All this flowing, and above that spirit moves. Through all the rock wall and air and water, spirit flows, sweet smelling. The river is a spirit trough. I breathe it in. And finally, the last section, which is, I do love the title of it. The title of this section is Roy Acuff and Charlie Pride talk about the Atlanta Braves on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry and other scenes. This one will be under the other scenes. It's called Barn. There is a barn with no door, or maybe the door was designed to camouflage and disappear into the wall when closed, as it would be now if it exists. The only apparent entrance is the square on the bottom, triangle on top, hole in the wall, up under the overhanging roof. Big dark hole a hay fork could enter, and the dark of the inside of the barn can exit there, or hang just inside, right at the hole, ready to exit when the night signals. More dark comes out some nights than others. Barns mostly have dirt floors, as you know. This barn just goes down in a rectangular hole through the dirt all the way to China. In China, there has to be an upside-down barn the same size as this one on the other end of the hole. This is the way the moon whispers to Earth. Its radiance invades the barn dark through the hay fork window and rides it down into Earth's middle, where the flecks of shining collide with the lucid wet metals streaming and steaming there, and the scent of the flowing rock in Earth's core hitches onto the rising dark and goes moonward, whispering something back, whispering something black, going up and down or down and up to China and back. Doesn't matter. The scented dark knows just how fast it needs to move to be on time, when the wind will be on one end or the other to be released with momentum out the hay fork window, dark streaking out of the barn straight up to meet the moon. Thank you. Up next is Robyn Leigh Lear.
Tonight, I'll be reading from my collection, Ekphrasis' Divination, and then excerpts from a manuscript that I've nearly finished, Yonderling. And what's really funny is as this is Robyn Leigh Lear, I sound like a stutter, right? In a lot of ways, this book I've realized was my attempt to hide, and then Yonderling is my attempt to reveal and to hide the messiness of me, which is why it's funny that Theo's cards jumped out all over the floor at us, right? This book, Ekphrasis' Divination and Incantation Catalog, is engaging with tarot card reading, but it's done in the form of Theo Hall's deck of fortune-telling cards that they've also written almost 200,000 words worth of myth for. And I engaged in found language throughout the project. How you distinguish between the voices is by color. And I'm just going to read one reading for all of you today. And I'd like it if, Gavin, would you mind coming up here so I could perform a reading for you? You just sit right there. And then what you'll do is you'll stare into this image, and then I'll read a poem over you, right? Just feels wrong to do divinations without somebody to read them to. The title of this one is When Someone Told Me a Joke Years Before I Started Listening. In your hands you have the young tin wizard. This is your past. The moon pours down influences, destroying the old convention that it is sane to be an artist. Between the world yawns a gulf which few can cross. So I imagine the act of flying and discover the dead land looks like lilacs, scattered out, stirring with the roots of desire. If I libel my own muse as a relic of the day, dull memories still pursue. For a butterfly winging its way cannot grow to be a moth, and I cannot occupy paradise or an earthly body with a serpent twining round my neck for the world. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you. Are you ready to come up? Come on down. Now you know how dangerous it is to come to one of Professor Lear's readings. Have a seat. Yeah. You don't have to pick up after me. I'll be picking up after myself, right? And then stare into this image. Mm-hmm. And now I'll read a poem over you. In your hand is the present, the fourth. The veil or mask perpetuates change from lower to higher. And this is more fitly represented and rectified as these apocalyptic visions. If I should die, said I to myself, is a crude notion my reaping skeleton knows. I have left no immortal work behind me. Nothing. Which signifies life. Just the inner work is impossible to make my friends proud of my memory. Crude notion of the reaping, skeleton inspector. Exchange a reality for a blind dreamland, where truth's inner feeling can and cannot be felt, while prelate clasped hands await our end. A crude notion reaps our skeletons again and again and again, to rattle our buried, abandoned bones. Thank you. And then lastly, I'd like to call Brian. Would you come so I can read a poem over you?
Okay, that'd be fun.
Here you go. This is your card.
Boy, you nailed that one. An easy chair. Oh, the joke.
This is the future, and this is the joke. I have just written my own muse, And she tells me not to be uneasy about arbitrary letters, eccentricity, and manner. This is simply the card of human love. Here you are, she says, and who might you be? With a warm greeting between vice and virtue, don't worry, she laughs and closes her eyes and fits her hands around her own neck. In a sense, this card is a mystery, a change in the form of consciousness. Just don't tell, she says, with a wink. It'll be our secret. Now comes the real show. Thank you, Brian. Yeah. No. Right, you can buy a pack on Amazon. No, you can't. It's just The Young World.
The Young World.
Mm-hmm. By Theo Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to wrap up our Poets Corner this evening with some Q&A. And just because I haven't actually heard this in a recorded message for the world to know and see, and frankly, we may even turn this into a little micro social media moment, I would like for our representative in publishing, help me out here. Can you tell us, in short terms, what a chapbook is for those who are not in the poetry community?
So, in short, it's a short book of poems. There's different definitions. Usually like everything sort of in publishing comes down to page length. So, for us, we consider a chapbook between 25 and 50 pages or poems. And that's pretty industry standard. I mean, you can get less. I mean, there's chapbooks that are 15 pages long, but they're usually for writers who are working their way up to writing a full collection of poetry. Generally, with those, you're going to want at least 50 pages or 50 poems is sort of the industry standard for those. And that's what Klyd did. That's how we got Klyd's into that full poetry collection category. Is he mainly, I think, just writes chapbooks. So we put 3 of them together to get past that page count marker. Yeah.
May I say something? The book called Mother Grave Ghost is a chapbook, and it was co-written with me and my goddaughter, who lost her mom when she was 8. So we don't name who wrote what poem. And it's just really tight distillation of this one particular feeling of loss, early loss, that I certainly didn't want to put more than 50 pages of that. So I think also if there's a really tight theme, I was taking a chapbook workshop with Sienna Rouse at the porch, and I thought, what do I have? What does Lauren have? And so, but yeah, Klyd, I will also say about Klyd, he's 80 years old, and he in the 70s released LPs of spoken word. He's just like a really, 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 one more time, really cool human being. So.
All right. So one of the things that I love to ask for all of our poets has to do with kind of how you got to where you got in a way, but more so your approach to poetry, to writing, to creating this combination of words in your own unique and special way. So if you have a method to your madness, or if it's you run the gambit, you never know what's going to happen, I would love to hear a little bit from each of you on that.
My mentor was Diane Seuss, and she described my work to me once as the wall of sound, which was Phil Spector's sort of like wanting to just like drown the reader in as much sound as possible. And I thought it was interesting because partly one of the reasons why is that even if the content wasn't good enough, that the sound would carry the work. And she hit me to my core with it because it was like, oh yeah, I am just like a scared little animal. How'd you know? And so I think that in a lot of ways, that's what poetry does for me, is it gives me the space to try and configure the different aspects of myself and of the world that we are inheriting, and to try and make sense of something that, and to order something that is beyond our ability to really comprehend. I think it was E.E. Cummings said that poetry was the secular mystery. And so it's something that I return to as a way of trying to make sense of that world, if that makes sense. Yeah, I've been really liking form lately, and I think form is in a way like having a resurgence because we're wanting to be contained after sort of limitlessness being, with being what we were given. It feels nice now to be held in with space. And that's kind of now what my new venture is inventing new form and finding my way through form, if that makes sense. So
by form, she means sonnets and villanelles, that kind of thing. So I have 3 people in the audience I know who might appreciate a couple of examples. I was a classically trained singer, and so my first potential vocation and an avocation for sure is music, and that's the form out of which I write. I think of the structure of certain, for instance, there's a poem in the book, which is a broken sonnet about Charleston. And so I'll also say that part of what I've been told, my friend Pat, at least, by my friend Pat there at least, is that she feels that she's very much in the moment with me. And I think I carry stuff, memories, images, like the poem for Stephanie, for 9 months. I wouldn't write things down. I would just let whatever came back to me come back to me. I had images, and it took 9 months for it to actually start being on paper. So, but the broken sonnet about Charleston, I want to set to music as a lacrimosa, which probably my favorite is the Mozart. And so I have those kinds of feelings running through there. And just looking at the way lines are broken, I study choral music, and I've helped write it. And just the way you mark a score, there are places in a score where you cheat breath, like all the altos, like hold a note for a while, and then people just sneak a breath in and out. Or you can mark a piece where there's a really quick breath, a quarter, like a 8th note rest. So those kinds of things are that's what I consider part of my form, because the formal study I have is not so much about poetics. I mean, it is and isn't, than it is the study and composition of music. So, but I carry things. I try to remember moments, of time. My high school is surrounded by a cow pasture still. And just what it was like to be there as my mother was getting more ill. So I don't know if that says anything, but I have done things like like in the book, in the chapbook, there are a lot of wonky line breaks that that don't fit form, but that it suited the experiences of those losses. And Lauren wrote the more longer lines with lyricism, lyrical prose in there. So I'm going to give it. Lance is a fiction writer, a very good. Yes, you are allowed.
So given that poetry and many forms of writing end up on paper so that us across the world might experience it, even if we can't come to Poets Corner. I would like to know a little bit more about kind of what it takes, what maybe process, possibly timeline, or creative process made tangible. What does it take for someone to go from that, I have this idea or this way of being that I'm trying to get on paper, and to actually get to that hurdle over into it's finally in a published form?
Get rid of the hurdle. So, I mean, there's something that a lot of people call an inner editor, like a little inner editing voice that even before you sit down in front of a blank page is telling you you're not good enough, you can't do it, just don't waste your time. Or you've written something and they tell you that's all garbage and you just wasted your time, you should throw it away. That is the thing that you should get rid of. There's no one way to go from a computer screen to a book. I mean, there's multiple ways, but you as the writer has to be that light of inspiration yourself. You have to figure out something that works for you and your process. I mean, we could all talk about our processes up here. All three would be different. Any writer's process would be different. For me, as a fiction writer, I recently completed a novel that I'm trying to shop to agents and publishers, and I've had characters in this novel for 15 years. Now they've appeared in smaller, short stories and stuff that never really went anywhere, but the character, the person, has been with me for a long time. It's a little bit different writing fiction than like poetry, especially if you're writing about your life. With fiction, a lot of what you do is you mask your own life. So, you have, you don't have a thought, your character has a thought, So you have this kind of step away from the actual thought, which in a lot of ways gives you a freedom that you can explore outside of just writing about what happened to you in your actual life. Like for me, a character will embody maybe 8 to 10 people that I know. Like I would take a piece from this person, maybe something I saw on television one time, and mold it into this new entity, this new character. So there's, the biggest thing I think is to find a balance. Everybody's got a job. Everybody's got, something they have to do during the day. So you have to figure out, once you get rid of that inner editor telling you not to do it, you got to figure out where in that day are you going to sit down and do the writing. Is it going to be for an hour? Is it going to be for 15 minutes? And that's the game, Every day is a new opportunity to sit down and write. And there's no one way or right or wrong way to do it. It's just, I think, just get out there and do it. So.
Awesome. So before we close it out, Dana's going to close us out with a poem this evening. I do want to share. Now, I mentioned earlier, for most of us who were here when we started, who we are at Scarritt Bennett. And part of that work is not just Poets Corner. Okay. We do have special events and occasions. We have a book club that connects and reads books together. We have performances that we host or put on ourselves, including like a concert on Sunday night from our Nashville Chamber Music Society friends. But also, as far as writing goes, We have some writing meetup opportunities. Many of you heard and have signed up already to connect with our budding new online community environment. But we've also got a writers event coming up in October. We just did one this spring, and I encourage you to show up. This will be an opportunity to connect with publishing bodies. I want to have you back. But we also have other writers, people that teach and do and engage with, can coach, can talk you through some things, maybe help you wordsmith a little bit. We try to create opportunities to, as our mission states, create space where individuals and groups can engage each other to achieve a more just world. And sometimes just is helping folks that don't usually have somebody they can talk to and get a little help doing what they love. Support and motivation to break down the barriers, right? So come connect, follow us on our calendar. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get the updates because we are super launching this online community soon. So you'll also get notifications through our newsletter, besides waiting on me to send you a direct email because you signed up today. So with all of that, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening if you're on the podcast. And that said, Dana, take us away.
So I was a journalist also for a while, and I'm reading this for my friend Lisa, but it's also going to be the last poem in the book. But I mean, when you say everything, everyone begotten, everything holy, you may have to include people, places, and things in that list that you're uncomfortable with or would not consider to be yourself. But this is one of those set for SATB Voices, not tonight. It's called Humanist Intercessory. Cradle the makers of funny cat videos and little girls who snuggle with elephants. Cradle the basset hound marked as bait before pit bull fight. Cradle the pit bull chained to steel and beds of concrete. Cradle freight lines if they abbreviate warning blasts. Cradle sacred oratorios for matching the key of Amtrak whistles. Cradle the krautrock drone, the brainwash of factories. Cradle iolite and blindness. Cradle the street teens who sell their bodies for winter coats. Cradle the escort who considers herself above the street whore. Cradle the Stepford wives of diamonds and escalades who cannot afford diamonds and escalades without the iron-fisted mister. Cradle private school sons and daughters, dropouts and adjunct faculty on welfare. Cradle the bikini waxed and those who grow afros between their legs. Cradle the death row inmate who didn't do it and the one who couldn't care less for axing a family. Cradle the legal aid society and 25-year-olds who suck the corporate teat to make partner. Cradle 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. Cradle the beneficiaries of dollar bread and produce near ruin. Cradle those who can afford to eat at the Dorchester every weekend and blow $1,000 or $2,000 each trip to Nordstrom's. Cradle all who believe in the one who rose after 3 days. Cradle Mardi Gras crews and pancakes before death. Cradle atheists in a land where God parades on paper currency. Cradle the electrons of Madeleine Murray O'Hare and St. Catherine of Siena. Cradle Dana's sister, who used to call the basset hound a basket ham. Cradle the speech impediment of grandmothers returning to the toothless age. Cradle fathers who long for full use of their right arms after war and stroke. Cradle the nursing home yet to end bed sores and fire negligence. Cradle third shift nursing assistants who paint their nails and steal TVs from dementia. Cradle their children who would not have television otherwise. Cradle Kathy Griffin for going too far, and artists who get away with smearing feces on crucifixes. Cradle compost, weed and bridal bouquets, artisan cheeses and cheese whiz, luxe bed sheets, rickety clotheslines, Chanel No. 5 and unscented dryer sheets. Cradle cloth diapers and landfills full of Pampers. Cradle broken vows and fidelity, the blended adoptees and boys and girls who reach 18 in foster care. Cradle give a damn and tragedy in their slope and tangle before fire burns every arm bent in love.